In Stalin's Soviet Union, silence could save your life. A careless word could end it. Every wall had ears. Every neighbor might be an informer. Even your own child could be listening. And that, perhaps, was the dictator's greatest triumph. Stalin ruled not just through force, but through fear made personal. He didn't need soldiers on every street. He turned ordinary people into his spies, a nation that watched itself. The NKVD, Stalin's secret police, had eyes everywhere. They built files on millions of citizens, teachers, factory workers, poets, farmers. But the genius of Stalin's terror was that he made the people themselves part of his surveillance machine. Propaganda called it vigilance. In truth, it was paranoia, institutionalized. Children were told at school, if your parents speak against the party, report them. Loyalty to Stalin comes before family. Thank you, Comrade Stalin, for our happy childhood. A childhood built on fear. A nation raised to believe that devotion meant betrayal. And soon, that loyalty would find its most infamous example. A boy who turned his father in to the authorities and became a national hero. His name was Pavlik Morozov. He was just 13, a small, serious boy from a small Siberian village. His name was Pavlik Morozov. In another time, he might have been remembered for his grades, his laughter, or his dreams. But under Stalin, he became something else, a symbol, a warning, a weapon. According to official history, Pavlik denounced his own father, Trofim Morozov, for hoarding grain and forging documents, crimes against the Soviet state. The truth behind the story is tangled and uncertain. But what mattered to Stalin's regime wasn't truth. It was usefulness. The idea of a boy who betrayed his father for the sake of the revolution was irresistible propaganda. It told every Soviet child, your true parent is the state. Your loyalty belongs to Stalin. After Pavlik's death, murdered, the story claimed, by his angry relatives, Stalin's propaganda machine went to work. Statues rose, songs were written, books were printed. Pavlik Morozov became the model Soviet youth, pure, devoted, unflinching. Children across the country learned his name. Teachers asked their students, would you be brave enough to do what Pavlik did? And thousands of small hands went up. Whether Pavlik was real, invented, or exaggerated no longer mattered. What mattered was the message. There was no bond stronger than loyalty to Stalin. After Pavlik Morozov became a national icon, the lesson was clear. To love Stalin was to betray everyone else. His story became part of school books, newspapers, even bedtime stories. Children were praised for reporting their parents' anti-Soviet words. At work, employees denounced their co-workers. Neighbors watched each other's windows, listening for whispers of dissent. Fear had become the foundation of society. You didn't need to believe in Stalin's greatness. You just needed to fear what would happen if you didn't pretend to. The NKVD didn't have to search far for evidence. Denunciations poured in daily. Letters, rumors, accusations scrawled on scraps of paper. A teacher might accuse a colleague out of envy. A man might inform on his neighbor to settle a grudge. A son might report his father to prove his loyalty. In the Soviet Union of the 1930s, truth no longer mattered. An accusation was enough. Once your name appeared on a list, you were already guilty. Every denunciation fed Stalin's paranoia, and every arrest reminded citizens that they were being watched, not just by the state, but by each other. Under Stalin's gaze, friendship, family, and trust disintegrated. The only safe emotion left was fear. It held the country together, tighter than any ideology ever could. Imagine living in a world where every word you speak might be your last, where even a sigh, the wrong tone in your voice, could send you to prison. In Stalin's Soviet Union, silence wasn't just golden, it was survival. People learned to live with secrets. They whispered in kitchens, behind closed doors, with the water running, so the sound would drown their voices. They burned letters, hid diaries, and never trusted telephones. Children were told stories not to teach them lessons, but to protect them from speaking the truth. Parents feared their own sons and daughters. One careless comment, repeated at school, could mean arrest by midnight. And when someone disappeared, a coworker, a neighbor, a friend, no one asked why. People stopped looking out their windows at night. They stopped asking questions. They stopped saying names. This was the true genius of Stalin's control. He didn't just build prisons and gulags. He built fear into the human soul. By the late 1930s, millions were gone, swallowed by the system, erased from photographs, their voices replaced by silence. And the silence was louder than any protest could ever be. When Stalin died in 1953, millions of people wept in the streets. Some cried out of grief, others out of relief, but for many, it was too late. The damage was done, not just to bodies, but to trust, to truth, to the very idea of safety. For 2 decades, Stalin had ruled through silence and suspicion. He built a nation where children informed on parents, friends feared each other, and loyalty was measured by betrayal. Even after his death, people still whispered. They still lowered their voices, even when no one was listening. The terror had become instinct. The surveillance never truly ended. The faces changed. The slogans evolved. But the lesson remained. Control thrives where fear is stronger than truth. Generations later, old men and women would still remember the nights of knocking at doors, the names never spoken again, and the feeling that someone, somewhere, was always watching. Stalin didn't need gods or ghosts to rule his empire. He created his own, in the form of a frightened people, watching each other, listening for betrayal, living under the gaze of a man who never stopped looking. This was Stalin's greatest creation, a nation that spied on itself,